I guess we are live. I'm Chris Epting, author and journalist, with another edition here of Only You Know and I Know, the Dave Mason podcast. Dave, are you there?
Yes.
Good to see you. Dave,
we called Dave. Dave's here, man. Dave's not here, man.
Dave, we've spoken to a lot of musicians over the last few months, but today we're kind of taking a different turn, something really exciting. We're going to chat with a friend of yours, a very esteemed, very acclaimed actor, I think one of the best actors of his generation, someone you've known for a while. I don't think we should wait too long. Why don't we bring in the one and only Malcolm McDowell? You there, Malcolm?
I am here. Hi, everyone. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Malcolm.
Good to see you, Malcolm.
We miss you here in California.
Yes, well, I miss you too, but we're going to be back over that way soon.
Okay.
While we get going, why don't you guys, Dave, talk about your friendship a little bit, how you guys got to know each other. We have some good questions from people. Why don't you kind of set the table with your relationship, how you guys became friends? You can both add to this, of course.
Well, I mean, obviously we're both Brits, and we didn't know each other back there in the early days, but we pretty much met in Ojai, California, which is where I was.
We've got friends like Eric Burden,
right?
And so we have sort of friends in common. And it's funny. I even though I am a legitimate actor, as they say, I'm much more into the rock and roll stuff, and also. You could claim Clockwork Orange is a rock and roll movie.
No. You played come on. Alex is the ultimate punk rocker, for God's sake. That's why.
It totally is. It totally is. And the grandfather of punk.
Exactly.
No, Malcolm, that's a great point. Malcolm, I was curious myself. When you guys, you and Dave both kind of came of age in London, Dave in music, you as an actor. When you were growing up, coming of age in the 60s, before Clockwork Orange, what kind of music fan were you? When you come from Liverpool, there's a band that hailed there. But what were you, as a music fan of the 60s, what were you into? Were you familiar with Traffic stuff Dave was doing, Beatles or Stones? Where were you at in the 60s?
Everyone was into Traffic. It was one of the great groups of the period. And, of course, all the Liverpool groups, and of course the main one, as we know, we don't have to get into all that, but that's a big deal, because that changed everything. That changed everything. The whole social fabric of the country was changed by that one group. And not only in England, in America too. Because when they hit America, it was in 1964, right after the depression of the assassination of Kennedy. And, here they needed something to latch onto and brighten what was going on, And the Beatles, it just so happened, the synergy, if you like, but they just came at the right time, it's lightning in the bottle. Of course, they were amazing songwriters and musicians, But that, I mean, there's, when you talk about them, that's a major change in, the way things were in certainly, and Dave was part of that too,
No, we were right. I mean, it's not just the music. I mean, the whole social fabric of everything. I mean. London in the 60s was a very unique place. Actors, artists, painters, designers. I mean, the whole, Mary Quant stuff.
Absolutely.
Takes a trip. I mean, it was a great time.
It was headed by the music.
Right.
Sort of the music drove it. That was part of it. And Dave, like me, is from a provincial town.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was not easy to break in to the big smoke, as we used to call it. London is the big smoke. And it was like a different world, It was a completely alien world to us.
Yeah.
And so when the Beatles came, and well, for me, it was Albert Finney. You know, I'm sure Dave has someone like that in his life, you know, but Albert made it possible for actors, you know, from Salford, which is where he was from. It's near Manchester, which is near Liverpool anyway. He made it possible for actors from the provinces to come in and you know, it was all plummy, sort of rather speaking actors before Albert, and Albert changed all that and got to it, and Tom Courtenay, those kind of actors, you know, and I suppose Richard Harris too, but he's Irish, so slightly different.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, Malcolm, David and I were talking earlier. You guys do share this kind of similarity, this workman-like approach to craft. You as an actor, of course, Dave as a musician.
Right.
Where you really, you're still a very hardworking actor, as Dave is a very hardworking musician. What you do, right? I mean, there's no retiring from what you do. This is what you are.
No. Retiring? I don't think I've ever been offered so much work as I'm offered right now. I don't know why that is, other than, you know, my competitors are all falling off the perch or something. I don't. But
last man standing, Malcolm, wins. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. The last one. But it's been such a fun time, you know. Of course, one is getting older, so you know, the things are not as easy as they were, especially the travel. But of course, Dave will tell you more about that because he's always traveling.
Yeah.
At least when I get to where I've got to be, I stop in the same place for a while and do the work and then have to travel back. But it's not so bad. He's traveling all the time, doing gigs and in a bus, and that's brutal, man. I take my hat off to him. That's pretty brutal lifetime. But he's used to it. You know, what can you do?
Both of you guys in the last.
I wanted to go back.
I want to just talk about Dave for a minute as he's here. I don't give a damn if he blushes. I don't. But, you know, he's a remarkable guy, really. And I like what you said about that workman-like craftsman. And you know, the people that go around calling themselves artists, full of shit, you know. At best, it's a craft. And this man, Dave Mason, is one of the best at his craft. There is no question about it. And Jesus, we saw him here in our local bowl, and he playing that guitar, man. He was just absolutely flying.
Well, people say similar things about you. I mean, what you bring to what you do has always. I mean, look. Interestingly, too, you both in the last year have kind of a big anniversary. Last year for Dave, it was the 50th anniversary of his, you know, groundbreaking record, Alone Together. And for you, I mean, this is a big anniversary, too, for Clockwork Orange. I mean, it's something that, you know, there's a big re-release and a great repackaging, Blu-ray and all that. But it's, you know, you both early in your careers did something that really kind of set a tone for what the future was going to be. I'm not sure if you had any clue at that point the tone you were setting. But as Dave mentioned earlier this morning, people keen on Clockwork, but really it was the movie If, a couple of years before. Kubrick sort of, you know, noticed you, this character that you have.
Lindsay Anderson was the genius, if you're going to band around that name. But Lindsay Anderson was a very special person and a remarkable human being and just a brilliant director, you know. It was like working with an Oxford Don. And for me to get cast in my first movie, was a masterpiece. And as he said to me afterwards, well, Malcolm, it's all downhill for you from now on. And I looked at him like, fuck you. Right. And Stanley saw that movie and cast me. I never did an audition or anything for the movie, this movie. But Lindsay was a remarkable person. And I remember saying, because, you know, he loved John Ford, brilliant American director, and I asked him why he loved John Ford so much. And he said, well, Malcolm, there are many great directors, very few poets. John Ford was both. And so was Lindsay. So was Lindsay.
Fantastic. Dave had an idea today. We wanted to sort of pull in questions to talk about acting, to get into your craft a little bit more. Dave, if you want to get a couple of acting questions here, I know you've got somebody standing nearby who can provide a couple of those. Maybe now's a good time for that.
I just wanted to go, take it back. I mean, Malcolm, Malcolm is classically trained. And
Malcolm is not trained at all. Malcolm winged it.
This way, you're not trainable, okay?
Well, that's true too. No, I did not go to school. I didn't go to school. I did an audition for Lambda, but it was an audition for provincial actors to come to London, do their pieces, to show them. I can't hear Dave now.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So I was offered a job in repertory theatre by one of the judges that were judging this thing, and which I grabbed, £8 a week. And I just jumped at it because I really just wanted to be a professional actor. And I knew that once you're on the bottom, set of the ladder, you could only go up. You couldn't get any further down. And I knew that, that was the beginning of the journey for me. So, and...
But you did subsequently go through a lot of programs and training. I mean, you did embrace Clockwork, right?
I mean, I took it seriously, exactly. And, I went to take, I even did a course of method acting. I had some method acting from New York over in London, and I just thought it was such a load of hooey, I mean, I lasted, I think, two sessions of that, and I went, this is bullshit. No, but the first person I went to as an acting teacher was an 82-year-old woman called Mrs. Harold Ackley. She was at the Crane Building in Liverpool. I had a girlfriend that went to her for elocution lessons, and she persuaded me to go. And I just loved talking to this woman because she was an old-time silent movie star. Wow. And stories. And she was one that persuaded me to do the Lambda thing. And years later, it was funny, I was having dinner at some dinner party, and Rita Tushingham, who was a very well-known actress, she'd done A Taste of Honey, in Sheila Delaney's great story, and it was, very well thought of in England. And I'm talking to her, to Rita, and she said, yes, no, I was trained by Mrs. Ackley. And I just hooted with laughter because I'd never met anyone else who'd ever been and met Mrs. Ackley. So we had that in common. We always giggled about it.
Malcolm, we have a question here from Maggie L. She says, I saw Clockwork Orange 13 times in the theater near my home when I was 16. The scene with those clips holding your eyes open couldn't be faked. How long did the ordeal last? I heard that Stanley Kubrick was famous for multiple takes. Was that your experience? We know, I've read that he actually really pushed you physically. Talk to us a little bit about what that was like on those memorable scenes. You actually paid a physical price when you were doing that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. But, it was a small price to pay. We still talk about it 50 years later. And I knew that. But he showed me a picture of a man with these clips, in his eyes. And I looked at it. He said, what do you think? And I went, yeah, that's kind of cool. Who is it? He goes, no, that's what, you know. I went, you're not, what? I said, you're not suggesting I do this? He goes, yeah. I went, Stanley, there's no way. I can't do that. You'd have to be out, you know. He goes, I've got a doctor coming from Moorfields Eye Hospital, and he's going to talk to you tomorrow, and I think you should talk to him. So, of course, the guy came, and I talked to him. He said, oh, you don't have to worry. There's no problem. You know, your eyes are going to be anesthetized. Well, yeah, sure they were anesthetized. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel now that, you know, the fact is, those lid locks, that's what they're called, are used in delicate eye operations when you're lying on your back. You're not sitting up, you know, watching movies. And also those things were kept falling out of my eyes, and every time they fell out, they would scrape, you know, and scratch the corneas. And it was when the anesthetic started to wear off as I was driving into my cul-de-sac in Kensington, and I suddenly went over a bump in the car, and I thought, literally, I felt like I was being slashed at with razor blades. It was the most staggeringly horrible thing I've ever had. In fact, thank God I had a friend who was a doctor live round the corner, and he came round and gave me a shot of morphine. Otherwise, I would not have got through.
Wow.
It was really that bad.
Wow.
Dave, do you remember when you saw,
with this good.
Hang on, sorry.
when you saw the film, what were your impressions back then when you saw Clockwork and you saw Malcolm's performance? What do you remember thinking when that film came out?
Clockwork?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the story is. I mean, it's very. The story itself is obviously very prescient.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was radical. It was, like everything else. It was a radical movie and a radical, what can you say? It's an iconic character. I mean, it just, like I said, it fits in, even though Malcolm is an actor and stuff. I could keep saying that Alex is the ultimate punk rock.
Yeah.
Star. So it's
Well,
sort
there's
of
a lot in that, there's a lot of course, a lot of what I chose to do, how I chose to play it. First off, I had a northern accent in it, which very few people really caught, because but Burgess said, the guy who wrote the book that it's all based on, he said, "I'm so glad you did it northern." I went, "Tony, you're the first person to even say that. Stanley didn't even know I was doing it." He goes, "It's so good that it wasn't that Cockney whine." I went, "Yeah, it because it lends itself more to the language, and I attacked that language that Burgess made up as if it were Shakespeare, and that's the way I did it. So my 18 months in the Royal Shakespeare Company paid off. I hated it so much. And as soon as I got in there, I tried to get out because I hated it. But you can't get fired from, it's like being in the government. It's impossible. Unless you have some sex scandal or something. There's no way you're getting out of that. And so, Beckett's here with his guitar. You want to play something?
Yeah, you know what? If we can segue here a minute, I just want to, for everybody who's tuning in to watch this, Beckett, who is Malcolm's son, is absolutely, he's carrying the baton for us musicians. He's extremely talented. Sang with me actually at the Santa Barbara Bowl when he was 8 years old, I think.
Yeah.
I think you're right, Beckett? And Beckett's got a brand new record out, and maybe we'll have him drag the phone over and show everybody that awesome guitar collection that you have sitting there.
Hello.
Hey,
How you doing?
Hey there, Beckett.
Hi.
Good. You were going to be home.
Yeah.
Are you going to give us a little bit of your latest release, a little song, a little live thing here?
I just we just released a song called Weirdo out on everything now. And yeah, do you want me to play it for you?
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
This is my new. I just got this, Dave. It's
Oh my God, it's beautiful.
Gibson hooked me up and got me a cool hummingbird.
You don't have enough guitars, guy. Okay.
All right, here's Weirdo. Hey yo, I don't care if you're weirdo, 'cause I'm a weirdo too. Never got a seat at the cookie table, but you've got a thing that they just can't favor. You're like a wildflower, whoa, under the power lines. Maybe it's too far out there, so maybe you don't know it, but you're just my type. Hey, oh, I don't care if you're weirdo, what people say. Oh, you can throw it out the window. They can call you a loser, a monster, freak, but what do they know? Hey, oh, I don't care if you're weirdo, 'cause I'm a weirdo too. People wanna talk a little, talk about you. I know what it's like, what it feels like, when no one gets you. You think you're nothing special, but I wanna change your mind, because I've got a funny feeling that maybe you don't know it, but you're just my type. Hey, oh, I don't care if you're weirdo, what people say. Oh, you can throw it out the window. They can call you a loser, a monster, freak, but what do they know? Oh, hey, oh, I don't care if you're weirdo, 'cause I'm a weirdo too. You know that I'm just jealous of you, just jealous of you. What I feel for you is true, it's true. Hey, oh, I don't care if you're weirdo, what people say. Oh, you can throw it out the window. They can call you a loser, a monster, freak, but they know. Hey, oh, I don't care if you're weirdo, 'cause I'm a weirdo too. 'Cause I'm a weirdo too. 'Cause I'm a weirdo too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Nice job, Beckett. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Record is cool, man. It sounds great.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, it's I'm proud of it, and I don't know when it's coming out, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
Cool.
My music video Weirdo comes out on Friday on YouTube too.
All right, man.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
hopefully
let you talk.
bring on the old man again. Yeah, I am not done with him.
Yeah, but thanks for having me, Dave. Thank you guys.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
Goodbye.
Well, that's got to feel pretty good, Malcolm.
So Malcolm, I can't let you get away without talking about Caligula.
Well,
And I know that last time we were together in Ojai, and you were talking about maybe you were going to do a little one-man show, which was, of course, fantastic, and especially with your Peter O'Toole's and perhaps you could give us a little bit of, maybe John Gielgud. Can you give us a little bit of John Gielgud?
Oh God, I don't know whether I can do that now.
You got to give me a piece of John Gielgud.
Get out of here.
Well, you know.
Anyway, the movie itself. I mean, it was
The movie itself. You know, listen. I was called up by Gore Vidal. Now, when you're called by Gore Vidal, you know, he was, you know, one of the great literary giants, you know, we thought, of that period, him and Truman Capote. By the way, they hated each other like crazy. You know, they were at each other's throats. There was so jealousy and bitchy about each other. And in fact, I think they'd thrown wine at each other at some socialite party in New York, and big feud. And so, you know, I was getting ready to go to Rome to do this thing, and I was packing up to go for at least 6 months. I had to pack up my house, take my dog to the kennel. I mean, do all these things. And I get a call from Gore Vidal, who's already in Rome, and I was leaving the next morning early. And he said, Malcolm, we're all going to be there. We're all going to be at the airport to meet you. And I went, oh, that's not necessary. I mean, he goes, no, we're going to be there, Bob and Guccione, the pornographer, you know, the guy paying the bills, supposedly. Anyway, he said, but Malcolm, listen, when I was at the Connaught Hotel last week, I left my laundry by mistake. Would you mind going to the Connaught and picking up my laundry? And I thought, Jesus. I mean, you know, I was in Notting Hill Gate. I mean, to drive into the West End, you know, to Connaught Hotel, pick his fucking laundry up, and then come back when I've got all this going on. And anyway, of course, naturally, you know, it just slipped my mind completely because, of course, we get to Rome and we're sitting in the stretch limo, you know, and Gore says, oh, Malcolm, did you manage to pick up my laundry? And I said, oh, Gore, yes, I'm glad you asked me about that because I went to the Connaught Hotel. I asked the concierge I said, I've come to pick up the laundry of the greatest American living writer. And he went, hang on, Gov, here. All right, here's your parcel. He said, he brought out this very nicely wrapped brown paper parcel with string on it and everything. And, you know, there was obviously a laundry list tucked into it. And I gave him £5, Gore, which you owe me. And I said, sitting in the cab driving to Notting Hill Gate, and I glanced down at it, and the laundry had Truman Capote's name on it. He goes, what? What? I went, yeah, apparently Truman Capote has been staying at the Connaught, and I took his laundry by mistake. And he went, and he looked at me like incredulous. And I said, and by the way, Gore, just in case you want to know, I said, but he wears boxers. And he didn't, there was no smile, nothing. So it was 45 minutes in Rome traffic, you know, from Fiumicino to the Hassler Hotel. And we get out at the hotel, and Gore comes up to me and he goes, that was a good one. He figured it out. Anyway, that was the beginning of a very extraordinary year for me. And it was like the end of an era, really. It was an end of that. It was a Sodom and Gomorrah, if you want.
I mean, so I have to ask. I mean, you know, there were some of those scenes were pretty realistic in that movie. Were they all faked, or was there more going on that we should know?
Well, you know, all the hardcore scenes were shot 2 years afterwards because they were all added. Really? So you see a shot of me looking at my pet falcon. And instead of the cutaway to the bird, there'd be a cutaway to two lesbians going at each other for 10 minutes. And then interspersed would come back to me looking, like I'm looking actually at a bird, but here I'm looking at two lesbians really going at it. And so I've got a quizzical look on my face. It's stuff like that, which really ended to really piss me off. But, we were all sitting there, John Gielgud, myself, and Helen Mirren. And the way that it was shot was like on long lenses. There were mainly zoom lenses. There were 4 cameras set up with zoom lenses. You never knew where the zoom was going, what was going on. So you just had to kind of just do the scene, not worry about where all the... Anyway, Helen Mirren was up on a stage above us, like 12 feet up. And, the cameras, there was nothing on. The clothes were like, a stitch here and a stitch there. That's it. Nothing underneath. And we're sitting there and all this, so everything's out of focus. We're looking at a screen out of focus. And John Gielgud, he says, "Oh, what on earth is that? It looks like a big sinkhole." And then suddenly, the cranking up, they start going into focus, and it gets into focus and pulls back, and he goes, "Oh, it's not a sinkhole, it's Helen's arsehole." And it was her sphincter. We all went, "God, Jesus, we got to get the negative." It was a bit like.
Well, Matt, I hope you do the one-man show that Dave referenced. Malcolm, you've been super generous with your time. I know you've got to go soon. I had one last thought. We live in this era today of all these rock and roll documentaries. It's sort of the golden age of them. Back in the early 80s, you voiced a documentary called The Complete Beatles, right? Which was one of the first. I think that really is what started this thing that we've got now with really high quality rock and roll documentaries. What do you remember about that? I mean, you've done obviously amazing voiceover work in addition to on-camera work over the years on all sorts of things. But The Complete Beatles was a very noted, very acclaimed show at that time. What do you remember about it?
Oh, I remember it was very well, because I felt I was the right person to do it. I was from Liverpool, and I brought a sort of edgy realism to the voice. So it started off Liverpool, an industrial town in the northwest of England. It was like just edgy and direct. And it changed the way, now I heard this from the director, he said it changed the way narrations were with these things.
I believe it.
It was a sort of performance, I wanted to do my best for John because, I happened to wander into the Cavern Club, and saw the Silver Beatles and was mesmerized like everybody else by the energy they put out and the togetherness. It was, they played so much together by this time. They'd come back from Hamburg, and where they'd been playing 8 shows a day, night, whatever. And the band was so together. But of course, they weren't singing any of their own stuff. It was all covers, as I remember. I mean, maybe they did put in a couple of their own, not sure. But all I remember basically was Chuck Berry stuff and Little Richard. And John, John was the most charismatic. Paul probably won't like to hear that, but it's sort of true in the early days. It was basically the Quarrymen,
Well, you brought a lot. Again, that documentary, I think, really benefited from your voice work on it. It did make it more profound and I think more serious and more dramatic. I mean, it really did. And I do think that set the tone for a lot of the great documentaries that we see today, including the next Beatles one coming out.
Great. I'm thrilled, Ben.
Dave, anything in closing you want to say to your good pal here?
No, other than I miss him. Thanks for doing this, Malcolm. And
I'm glad we got there in the end.
Yeah. We have an announcement too that Dave and I were gonna. If you can join us just for the next minute or so, I'm actually over here. Dave, hang on one sec.
Yeah. We're going to be back. I should be back in Ojai last week in January because I'm going to rehearse in LA for the tour.
Hey, Dave. We're finally together.
Hi.
Alone together.
Hello together again.
Dave and I want to announce to you, Malcolm, first, and everybody else that our book, Dave's memoir,
okay.
You and I know, is now actually officially available for pre-order. There's a link right now in the comments. You can go check it out. Now, there's going to be a lot more about it soon, but I am super excited. Finally, that your amazing story gets out after all this time. So,
is the book already done? It's ready to go, right?
Oh, no.
We're here working on it right now.
Chris is where he's here for we're just finally putting it together. It should hopefully be coming out on BMG.
It comes out in June from BMG Publishing.
Yeah.
I think June 14th. And
only you know and I know.
Only you and I know. And tomorrow we'll have up and everything.
I want to read that. That should be a
wonderful, personally signed copy of it.
First one.
Yeah.
God, wow. Well, good. Sign it and put it on eBay.
Malcolm, thanks so much. Thank you so much for your time today.
Good to see you, Dave. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, I love you, man. I'll see you soon.
Love you too, Dave.
Love to Kelly.
Yeah, and to Winifred, man.
All right, then. Thank you.
All the best.
All right, signing off.
Oh,